The attic door creaked against years of silence. Anna raised her flashlight toward the beams overhead, its glow thickened by dust that swirled like faded snow. She could still smell cedar mixed with something faintly metallic, as if the air hadn't moved since her aunt last walked these stairs. Each step sighed under her weight until she reached the far corner behind boxes of magazines and lamp parts. There, a low humming echoed, steady, almost alive. Beneath a moth-eaten quilt sat a trunk with brass corners dulled to the color of smoke. The lock surrendered after one careful twist. Inside lay a single, leather-bound book with no title. The pages crinkled when she opened it. On the first sheet, faint ink lines formed a map threaded with handwriting and her aunt's precise initials. Curiosity warred with dread. The map didn't feel like an invitation. It felt like a request, whispered across time. Lydia had left behind more than ink and paper. She had left a task waiting for the one who would finally understand it. Anna didn't know it yet, but that quiet command would lead her to something untouched for 70 years. 2 weeks earlier, Anna had left her city job at the small municipal library. She'd been the sort who repaired bindings herself, who whispered greetings to regulars more comfortably than to coworkers. When the news came that her Aunt Lydia had passed, her last living relative, Anna's world narrowed to the shape of a funeral program and a ring of old keys. The will mentioned a cottage in the hills outside Harrowfield, described in handwriting as neat as Lydia's signature always was. For Anna, keeper of quiet things, the drive there wound through empty stretches of farmland overgrown with wild mustard. The house appeared at dusk, a shape of sagging shingles and ivy, windows ambered with age. Inside smelled like paper and lilac soap. On the mantel, a row of clocks ticked out of sync, giving each room an uneasy rhythm. Anna unpacked her few boxes, a kettle, a stack of novels, her library card she couldn't yet bring herself to toss. The rooms seemed to hold their breath as she moved through them. Lydia had once been a respected historian who withdrew from town life, speaking only to a postman and occasionally to a neighboring archivist. At first, the house offered normal relics of a solitary mind. Piles of letters tied with ribbon, cups half filled with dried pens, and books arranged by languages no longer read aloud. Yet within that order, Anna noticed subtler oddities. Drawers required specific angles to open, as though they hid mechanisms inside. Cabinet doors were triple locked without reason. Several bookmarks bore ink marks identical to cataloging codes, cross-referenced numbers without any known volumes to match. Loneliness set in quietly, distorted by curiosity. Each night before bed, she read through Lydia's notebooks, field journals full of meticulous recording, titles of manuscripts, fragments of Latin translations, and recurring notations beside certain entries. Protect pending confirmation. At the edges of one journal, Anna found an unfinished letter addressed simply to A. It read, "We cannot sell what was never ours. The value lies in preservation, not possession." The phrase lodged in her mind. Too valuable to sell. Valuable how? Monetary, historical, emotional even? During meals, she caught herself imagining Lydia in the chair opposite, still lecturing about the importance of record-keeping as though history could crumble if mislabeled. Maybe it could. A week passed before Anna explored the attic. The narrow staircase behind the linen cupboard revealed itself through a gap in the wall paneling. So discreet she'd swear it hadn't been there before. Dust and webs thickened as she climbed, but so did a strange sense of invitation, as though the house awaited someone who would understand its language. At the landing, she found the air cooler. Beneath the single bulb hung notebooks stuffed into wooden crates and a typewriter missing its ribbon. Past it, she spotted that locked trunk she'd later open. But that night, she only tested its latch and left it untouched, unsure if she was intruding on something Lydia meant to hide. Downstairs, the cottage creaked as rain touched the roof. Anna brewed tea and reread the letter. The handwriting at the bottom trembled, perhaps from illness. Protect the collection. She thought of Lydia's conference photos, her startled talks about document recovery from war ruins. Had she brought pieces of those archives home? Could any of that be here, quietly sleeping behind walls? The next morning, curiosity outweighed respect. She began cataloging the study room. In drawers, she found correspondence addressed to a Dr. L.C. Rhodes, her aunt's initials. The letters referenced acquisition shipments from Europe during an archaeological grant. Some packets contained photographs of packages sealed with wax stamps marked "Return to Owner Unknown." In the margins, Lydia had written, "Estate of Densmore, classified papers enclosed." The more Anna read, the clearer Lydia's obsession became. Lost documents from occupied countries, manuscripts that vanished after libraries burned or governments collapsed. Lydia had hunted them quietly, retrieving what commerce ignored. Afternoons slid into nights surrounded by shadows and stacks of aging paper. Anna no longer noticed the hum of clocks, only the whisper of turning pages. Her librarian's instincts returned, organizing, indexing, noting dates. Yet under every note ran a tremor of disbelief. If Lydia had truly hidden a collection here, where could it fit? The house was small, almost fragile, unless there were places beneath it. One evening, the power blinked out during a storm. Candlelight flickered against the ceiling, casting moving patterns that reminded her of shelf rows. She took the key ring from the wall hook and returned to the attic, certain this time that she would open whatever Lydia had left locked. Her fingers traced the trunk's clasp until it clicked. When she lifted the lid, the faint humming returned, though now she realized it was only wind brushing a loose vent. Inside rested that leather-bound book, its surface darkened by oil and time. The cover bore a shallow impression of a crest she didn't recognize, something between a tree and a feather quill. Anna settled cross-legged on the floor and opened it. The first pages were blank except for faded water stains. Further in were sketches, architectural outlines of corridors perhaps, or shelving plans. Then came the map, faintly drawn in pale blue ink over yellowed parchment. At the lower corner, small initials looped precisely, LCR Lydia's script. Anna's pulse quickened. She recognized the outlines of the property, the bend of the nearby creek, the line of orchard trees, the ridge near the old well. The markings led from the house toward something labeled simply cellar below. A shiver spread through her chest. She remembered that the Harrowfield Town Library, once central to Lydia's research, had been closed for decades after flood damage. Locals called it unsafe. The idea that a map from her aunt's attic could coincide with that location stirred something between fear and wonder. She lowered the book back into the trunk but left the lid open. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley, echoing through the beams above. Downstairs, the mismatched clocks struck different hours, each offbeat yet strangely rhythmic, as if counting down to some appointment she hadn't yet been told about. The next day, coffee in hand and sleep forgotten, Anna spread the map across the dining table. She drew fresh notes beside the roots and plotted each coordinate. By noon, one thought anchored itself. Lydia had left puzzles her whole life, smaller versions for Anna as a child, hidden bookmarks, ciphered riddles tucked into Christmas cards. But this wasn't a game. The handwriting beside the cellar arrow was heavier, the ink darker. Guarded. Access before demolition forbidden. Demolition of what? Anna searched local records. Sure enough, the town council planned to level the old library in a month. Something inside twisted. She shut the folder and looked toward the attic stairs. Every clue led someplace, and every librarian knew one rule: preservation before erasure. That night, she rose again to the attic, flashlight in hand, heart beating fast. The wind outside rattled the eaves, but all she heard was Lydia's quiet voice from memory saying, "Keep what matters safe." It was enough to send Anna back toward the shadowed trunk, and the next step in her aunt's secret. Morning light thinned through curtained lace when Anna awoke, the map still pressed beneath her notebook. She hadn't meant to sleep at the table, yet her pencil rested where she'd last traced the creek's bend. Coffee steamed beside her. The house was silent except for distant crows. She studied the lines again. The ink was so faint it seemed to fade as she looked at it, but the geometry was too precise to dismiss. Each curve matched part of the cottage grounds, down to the elm tree by the fence and the faint outline of the shed. Overlaid perfectly, a second path extended south beyond her property into town, breaking into 3 points marked with small triangles. Lydia had noted faint initials beside them: DW, HT, LW. The first, near the dried well behind the orchard, was only 10 minutes away. Anna slipped on her jacket, tucked the book under her arm, and stepped outside into cool mist. The grass was slick, the air sharp with early spring rot. Everything smelled of earth and rain. The well had been boarded shut decades ago. Ivy wove across its stones, almost beautiful in decay. She knelt and pried at the rotting planks. Beneath them lay a hollow echo, and wedged between 2 stones, a rusted tin capsule. She braced her fingers against the wet rim and coaxed it free. Inside was only a curled slip of paper, folded small as a matchbox note. On it, Lydia's handwriting again, neat even through smudges. Anchor point 1. Always begin with the well. There was no signature, just a single underline forming the shape of an arrow pointing north. Anna laughed softly. Of course, her aunt would leave breadcrumbs like catalog entries. Standing, she turned toward the orchard gate. Beyond the fence rose the next marker drawn on the map: the hollow tree near the stream. By late afternoon, she reached it. The trunk gaped open like a mouth. Inside, another capsule waited, this one glass, its lid labeled HT. Inside lay a photograph of the old Harrowfield Library in its prime, dozens of people in 194s, dress standing proudly before tall columns. Lydia, impossibly young, appeared among them, her eyes fixed on the camera with quiet intent. Scribbled on the back, "History retrieves itself if given enough time." The photo tingled cold against Anna's fingertips. Her breath clouded. She slid it into her pocket and stared at the river's slow current. Something about those 3 initials struck her. DW, dried well, HT, hollow tree. That left LW, likely library wing. Back home, she unrolled the map across the table and layered transparent tracing paper atop it. Using measurements from county survey records online, she realized the LW marker aligned strikingly with the coordinates of the old Harrowfield Library's basement. Her librarian instincts flared into methodical rhythm. For the first time since Lydia's death, she felt wholly alive. She gathered her tools: magnifier, notebook, graphite, the small brush she used for page cleaning. She even caught herself addressing an empty chair as if Lydia sat with her. "You wanted me to find it, didn't you?" Nights blurred into study. She compared handwriting samples from different letters, confirming Lydia had drawn the entire map herself. Margins revealed faint secondary marks, tiny slanted strokes beneath certain letters forming a slow pattern. When decoded through a simple alphabetical sequence, they read, "Protect the collection until she is ready." Anna paused on that line. She, not you. Was Lydia writing to someone else? Or had she written years earlier, confident her niece would step into this exact moment? As thunder rolled outside, Anna pushed away from the desk and paced. Books lined the dining room like silent witnesses. Her thoughts circled back to Lydia's war-era correspondence about missing archives. If she hid banned works here, it would explain everything: the secrecy, the reinforced cabinets, the coded maps. The following day, she visited town hall, pretending casual curiosity. The clerk, an elderly man named Mr. Lee she vaguely remembered from childhood, adjusted his glasses when she mentioned Lydia's name. "Your aunt," he said carefully, "wasn't fond of attention. Spent months petitioning to stop the library closure back then. Wouldn't let us catalog half the donation boxes unless they came through her first." Anna asked gently, "What happened to those boxes?" He hesitated. "Basement flooding ruined them, or so we were told. Place has been locked ever since. Scheduled for demolition next month." Shame, really. Lydia practically lived down there near the end. That sentence stayed with Anna as she walked back through drizzle to her car. The thought of her aunt lingering in a basement days before withdrawing from public life drew both dread and affection. She pictured Lydia alone amid dripping pipes and shelves, protecting something she couldn't speak of. Back at the cottage, evening fell heavy. Anna set the strange book beside her lamp and turned the first page again. She hadn't noticed before, but under the right angle of light, near the edge of the paper, faint graphite impressions emerged. She shaded them gently with her pencil, revealing outlines of a door. Arched, reinforced, set into stone, with numeric notes beneath it. Width 1.6 meters. Steel frame intact. Her heart thudded. The shape matched a rumor she remembered hearing in town: the sealed door found during the library's restoration planning. The one engineer said led to nothing but a collapsed stairwell. She whispered, half smiling, "You hid a door under a library, didn't you, Aunt Lydia?" At dawn, she drove into town with her notebook tucked under her coat. The library stood behind yellow fencing, its stone facade patched with cracks, windows clouded by grime. Notices warned against unauthorized entry. Yet, as she circled the building, she found a side path leading to a cellar window covered by corrugated metal. It rattled loosely in the wind. Through the gap, she caught a glimpse of concrete steps descending into shadow. The space beyond looked untouched, pale light catching, broken furniture and shelves. It wasn't flooded, not anymore. Later that afternoon, she met with Mrs. Renwick, head of the Historical Society. Anna explained she was considering writing a short paper on Lydia's archival work. It would help to review her donations before they're cleared, she added. Mrs. Renwick sighed. "I can't promise access, dear. That site's condemned." She peered over her glasses. "But knowing Lydia's family might want to say goodbye, I could arrange a short, supervised visit before demolition. Strictly records only." The following morning, when Anna received the signed permit, her hands shook. Beneath the official letterhead lay the scheduled date, next Thursday, 1 week hence. Enough time to prepare, though each night grew heavier with expectation. Sleep came light and scattered. Dreams folded between echoes of typewriter keys and the smell of damp paper. Once she woke certain she'd heard Lydia's whisper right against her ear. Find what was forgotten before it's lost again. As days passed, the town seemed different. Strangers nodded at her with faint curiosity. One older resident, Mrs. Clay from the grocer's, muttered when Anna mentioned the old library, "Best leave that place alone." Her voice trembled, gaze slipping sideways as if afraid to be overheard. When Anna pressed gently, she only shook her head. Your aunt knew things that weren't meant for daylight. She tried to keep them safe. That warning turned resolve into steel. Whatever secret Lydia had guarded went beyond sentiment. The pieces aligned, the map's arrows, the coordinates, the sketches of the sealed door. The final page of the strange book contained one last note, half erased but legible under lamplight. Enter through history's gate. Beneath the oldest catalog lies the rest. Anna closed the book slowly. She looked around the cottage filled with ticking clocks and fading dust motes drifting through sunlight. Her pulse matched the irregular rhythm of time itself. The path through her aunt's mystery had begun whispering louder, and she knew the next breath of it waited below the town library, an echo 70 years old, calling her name. Rain slicked the morning pavement when Anna parked outside the fenced boundary of the old Harrowfield Library. The demolition notice flapped against its post, the words, "Unsafe structure, entry prohibited, bleached by weather." Across the street, scaffolding leaned like brittle bones. Mrs. Renwick waited beside the side gate, wearing a hard hat several sizes too large. "You've got 90 minutes," she said. "If you see cracks, don't play hero. These basements collapse without warning." Anna nodded, clutching her satchel. Inside were gloves, a flashlight, her notebook, and the strange book whose map had become almost memorized. Together, they navigated down the narrow stairwell cracked with moss. The air cooled fast, carrying that heavy scent of plaster and wet wood, like a shut drawer opened after decades. At the bottom, Mrs. Renwick flicked her lamp across the gloom. Fallen shelves leaned drunkenly against one another. Puddles reflected fragments of ceiling beams. Anna trailed behind, counting steps just as Lydia would have. Each numerical rhythm anchored her against the tingling sense that she shouldn't be there at all. At a corner where the concrete dipped rose a faint metallic tang, rust and ink. Anna swept her beam sideways, catching the engraved plaque she'd read about. Archives, lower storage. Beneath it, bricks shifted into a pattern of lighter mortar. Her fingers brushed a line that formed a rectangle the size of a doorway. Mrs. Renwick muttered, "Nothing here was ever mapped properly. Records say this section was sealed in the 50s. Anna crouched, tracing the outline. The pattern matched the sketch from her aunt's book. Width, arches, rivets. She pressed the lower edge and heard a hollow note instead of solid wall. "It's a false plaster fill," she said. Mrs. Renwick frowned. "Meaning?" "Someone bricked it over intentionally, not during original construction." Before the older woman could object, Anna found an old chisel among littered tools and gently tapped along the seam. A fragment cracked loose, revealing metal beneath. Dull gray, the faint impression of hinges buried under paint. Her heart climbed into her throat. "What in heaven?" Mrs. Renwick whispered, stepping back. Anna angled the beam and saw it clearly now. A sealed steel door almost invisible, edges rust-welded but intact. Centered midway up, a faint engraving, the same crest she'd seen on the strange book's cover, the tree entwined with a quill. She ran her gloved hand over it and murmured, half to herself, "Lydia, what did you do down here?" Mrs. Renwick hesitated between curiosity and alarm. "I shouldn't allow tampering." Anna turned, voice calm but steady. "You said this place will be gone in days. If this door's part of the library's original design, documenting it now could change heritage classification. Help me photograph it." Duty overcame hesitation. Together they angled light and captured images while raindrops above rattled down drain pipes like distant static. When finished, Mrs. Renwick touched the cold metal and sighed. "I'll log its existence, but nothing more. The demolition team decides next week. After that, whatever's inside won't matter." When she left, locking the upper hatch behind her, Anna lingered. Her permit allowed supervised access only, but as footsteps receded, she realized opportunity had opened and was already closing. She studied the lock plate. Corroded, but beneath the rust, she glimpsed not a keyhole, rather two shallow recesses matching the twin circles pressed into the strange book's spine. Her pulse quickened. Could it be a mechanism? She withdrew the book, fingers trembling. Its leather spine bore raised bands forming two rounded ridges exactly spaced for the recesses. She hesitated. The air carried the sour bite of old mildew, and thunder above shook dust loose in gray flurries. Yet the pull to complete Lydia's puzzle pressed stronger than fear. She fitted the spine against the indentations. There was slight resistance, then a sighing click, ancient, reluctant. The door shuddered and gave a muted groan. Rust cracked leak ice. Slowly, inch by inch, it unlatched. A rush of stale air struck her face, cold and dry. Within lay a tunnel descending no more than a dozen steps. Concrete walls glistened like slate. She flicked her flashlight inside. The beam stretched down to where piles of wooden crates slumbered under decades of dust, their markings blurred yet faintly legible. She stepped through. The threshold felt like crossing time itself. Each breath condensed into white fog as temperature dropped. Her footsteps echoed with hollow precision, returning softer each time, as if the space itself listened. The first crate bore a stencil logo, Harrowfield Historical Society, private donations. Below it, handwritten numerals in Lydia's looping style. Nails had rusted thin. One pull loosened the lid, releasing a puff of air that smelled of parchment and wax. Inside lay stacks of wrapped bundles, each labeled Registry Fragments, Eastern Collection. Anna lifted one carefully. The paper beneath the wrapping shimmered faintly under light. Intricate calligraphy, signatures in languages she barely recognized. She turned another over. Its tag read, Correspondence of Lady Marin, 1794. Undocumented source. Each bundle was an archival ghost, the kind of material scholars dreamed about. Her throat tightened. Lydia hadn't fabricated legends. She'd preserved them. Moving deeper, she found a table bent beneath the weight of metal canisters. Their sides bore war-era dates and library stamps from across Europe. Some had been marked evacuation materials. Beside them sat ledgers full of acquisition notes, every line penned with her aunt's distinctive angles. Lydia had traced shipments rerouted during conflict, material declared missing, then erased from public records. Anna whispered, "You brought them home." Sound rose gently from somewhere behind, a drip, steady and measured. She turned her beam toward the floor where water rippled faintly through a cracked pipe. pooling near a set of metal drawers. Their handles were corroded, but numbers etched above remained. Roman numerals from I to 9. Drawer 7 hung slightly open. Within rested an object wrapped in oilcloth. When she unrolled it, she found a lantern, brass with etched filigree, still containing the wick charred from use long ago. Along the base, a line of text scratched by hand read, "Light preserves what eyes forget." Lydia's credo embodied in metal. She set it atop a crate and pressed her hand to her chest, overwhelmed not by wealth, but by the gravity of devotion. To hide and guard knowledge at such scale implied an oath stronger than law. Her beam caught writing on the far wall, chalk letters faded yet legible. Restricted private archive. Beneath it, Lydia must have added later in trembling chalk, "For A when ready." Tears burned her eyes. "You waited for me." Kneeling among shadows, she flipped through another ledger. Inside were diagrams of storage coordinates, maps leading beyond this chamber into sublevels marked with arrows. When she brushed away dust, she saw notes: floor instability, secondary vault secure under maintenance shaft. The air hummed faintly as if answering recognition. She stood, following the arrow chalked along the wall to a section where boards covered part of the floor. They creaked beneath her step, then shifted slightly to reveal gleam, metal beneath wood. The flashlight trembled in her hand. Beneath the loose boards, she saw a circular plate bolted into concrete, its edge ringed by the same crest once more. Not a drain, not utility access. Another portal. She crouched, tracing the rim. Something about it resonated like a heartbeat within the quiet. The first chamber had kept her aunt's rescued documents safe, but this lower vault, this was another story, one that might explain why Lydia acted in secrecy all her life. Above, faint thunder rolled again, distant machinery grinding as demolition crews perhaps inspected the site. She had minutes at best before she'd need to leave, yet every atom in her urged forward. If she could unlock this as she had the door, she would see the depth of Lydia's secret. The lantern's brass glowed in her beam, its reflection glinting across the seal as if inviting motion. Anna lowered her voice to a whisper. One layer down, then another, always thorough, always catalogued. She pressed her hand flat over the cold metal. Something within the seal clicked softly, almost imperceptible, echoing through the hollow space below. Her flashlight dimmed for a breath, caught by a final flutter of light through rising dust. Then silence, deep and absolute. Anna exhaled slowly, the sound of her breath the only proof she was still there. The second chamber waited beneath her feet, silent and sealed since Lydia's time. She replaced the boards gently and stepped back, promising she would return with tools, plans, and maybe allies, someone who could help her unlock another piece of her aunt's truth before demolition buried it forever. As she ascended the stairs and pushed into daylight, her fingers brushed against the strange book still warm from her grip. Its pages fluttered open in a sudden gust from the doorway, revealing the blank leaf she'd never noticed before. Lines shimmered faintly across it now, forming new words where there had been none. Below the vault lies purpose. A chill rose along her spine. The map wasn't finished. It was still writing itself. And for the first time, Anna realized Lydia's secret hadn't merely been hidden. It was alive, waiting. The next afternoon, Anna gathered supplies without thinking. Gloves, rope, a toolbox borrowed from the shed, and drove back toward town through curtains of thin rain. She had slept barely 3 hours, but the image of that metallic seal beneath the boards haunted her with the weight of unanswered history. The demolition fencing still stood empty, no workers yet. When she slipped inside the side gate, her heart nailed itself to the rhythm of every footstep. Inside, the cellar smelled the same: dust, damp plaster, and the faint ozone of long-cut electricity. Her flashlight beam trembled against stone as she retraced the narrow corridor toward the false shelving unit. One careful shove, and the steel door groaned open once more. The air that met her was colder than before, as though the space had remembered her scent and quieted in expectation. She knelt at the floorboards, pried 3 loose planks free, and revealed the circular plate again. The engraved crest shimmered faintly beneath a film of moisture. She pressed along its rim until the mechanism from yesterday's click returned. This time she twisted. A dull scrape echoed, followed by a slow release of air. The circle rotated 1/4 turn, lifting slightly. Beneath lay a dark, spiral staircase made of brass and oak, descending into colder shadow. A smell of machine oil drifted upward. She hesitated for only a second before stepping down. The staircase felt impossibly solid. Each step rang with hushed resonance, a sound trapped between music and memory. After perhaps 30 steps, the air changed, drier now, mixed with the tang of metal polish. Her light swept across polished oak panels that gleamed faintly even through dust, forming walls of a vaulted chamber. The space extended wider than she'd imagined, nearly 20 feet across, domed overhead with riveted brass plating. An old generator crouched in one corner, silent but orderly, as if someone once maintained it meticulously. Anna took a slow breath. "Lydia, what were you building under a library?" Across the room stood shelves, similar to those above, but inlaid with glass cases. Inside them, bundles of documents, drawings, and sealed envelopes lay in perfect dryness. A large table rested at the center with scattered drafting tools, a compass, protractor, fountain pen. Beside them, a folder sealed in wax bore her aunt's initials. She reached out but stopped at a faint movement reflected in the glass. Someone stood behind her. She turned sharply, flashlight raised. A man about her age stepped from the stairwell threshold, careful not to startle her. His coat carried dust marks like hers, his expression alert yet cautious. "Sorry," he said evenly. "Didn't mean to frighten you. I'm Ethan Lowe, restoration consultant. You must be Ms. Rhodes." The name startled her. Few used the old family surname anymore. "Who told you that?" He held up a laminated pass. "Historical Commission. They called me after reports of unregistered rooms during pre-demolition assessment. Said Lydia's niece requested access." Anna eyed him, uncertain whether the faint relief or deeper suspicion should take priority. "I didn't notify anyone else." He shrugged. "Someone did. Maybe your Mrs. Renwick thought extra oversight safer than another collapse." His gaze drifted past her toward the vault shelves. "Judging by the smell of raw paper, your aunt left quite an archive." Anna tightened her grip on the flashlight. "These materials are private. I'm still cataloging them." "I'm not here to steal anything," Ethan said. "But if that's what I think it is, a hidden annex built during wartime, you shouldn't be down here alone. Records suggest this foundation was reinforced in the 40s for cultural preservation projects. Lydia Rhodes worked on them." He stepped closer. The light caught a gentler truth in his eyes. Curiosity, not greed. He glanced at the wax-sealed folder and smiled faintly. "May I?" Anna hesitated, then nodded. Together they broke the seal. Inside were thick pages of ledger entries and attached maps. Shipping routes marked with war-era dates. Lists of crates labeled with names of European libraries lost to bombing. Lydia's inknote read, Harrowfield to remain custodian until recovery possible. Protect under archive of ordinary classification. The enormity settled like weight across both of them. Ethan exhaled slowly. She built a sanctuary, smuggled knowledge out of destruction zones, hid it beneath a public library so bureaucrats could never seize it. Anna traced one name among the lists. University of Cracovia, Central Archive. I've seen that mentioned in forbidden text registries. Exactly, he said. These could be banned or politically erased works. Scientific, artistic, even dissenting manuscripts suppressed by regimes. Their value isn't just money, it's memory restored. A pulse of recognition warmed her chest. For the first time, someone else understood Lydia's mission not as eccentricity, but as defiance. She caught herself smiling despite fatigue. She wanted to preserve truth, not profit. Ethan nodded. Truth is expensive. People will want to claim this the moment news spreads. Silence stretched, heavy as the walls themselves. Above, faint rumbles suggested thunder or far machinery. Anna set the ledger down carefully. Then we don't let anyone know yet. He studied her with measured respect. You realize this could be worth millions in legal recovery. Then it belongs to the public domain, not collectors. Her voice surprised even her, carrying warmth edged with steel. Ethan's smile sharpened with approval. Your aunt would like you. They turned their attention back to the vault. Along the far curve of the wall, brass panels bore etched and diagrams, blueprints of the library structure with red ink markings. Ethan traced them with his finger. See here, these arrows indicate emergency relocation shafts. She connected tunnels between this vault and adjacent basements. Ingenious. Anna leaned closer. Some run toward the print quarter behind the river. That building's condemned too. That means we might have alternate exits, he said thoughtfully, in case demolition cuts this off early. Alternate exits, she echoed, then frowned. You make that sound necessary. He gestured to the fresh cracks in one brass seam. This place won't hold forever. The generator cables led toward a smaller alcove half hidden by stacks of crates. Anna brushed aside a cloth and found an old switchboard still illuminated faintly by battery glow. One toggle labeled Primary Lock Sequence. Instinct led her to flick it upward. Deep metallic clicks rippled through the chamber floor like a distant heartbeat. Panels along the opposite wall slid back, revealing another recess. Inside rested steel drawers and cylindrical tubes arranged by catalog number. One tube had cracked open, exposing parchment edges blackened with soot. She lifted it gently. Inside was a sheaf of letters dated 1943, correspondence about safe transfer of Category C materials, referencing censorship offices. Ethan read over her shoulder. She must have been part of the network smuggling banned research before archives were destroyed. The idea stunned Anna. Her quiet aunt, once dismissed as a recluse, had been guardian of silenced knowledge. Every locked drawer at home, every coded bookmark had been practiced for this. From near the stairwell, a faint scraping interrupted the stillness. A soft drag like shoes over grit. Both froze. Ethan switched off his light instinctively. Did you lock the upper door? I thought so. They listened. The sound faded. Only drips echoed, possibly debris shifting above. Still, Anna's pulse thudded against her ribs. She whispered, If others are investigating the site, we'll need to secure what's down here before they touch it. Ethan nodded. I can file a preliminary preservation claim that freezes demolition for 30 days. But once documented, the location goes public. That means competition. Their lamps glinted off the polished brass, reflections flickering like silent fire. Anna stared at the map panels one last time. Then we move faster. Photograph, seal, and hide duplicates. Lydia didn't trust systems. Maybe she had reason. He closed his notebook, understanding. I'll bring equipment tomorrow. No one else needs to know yet. As they climbed back up the winding staircase, a thin current of air followed. Cool, almost whispering through the brass rungs. Standing again in the upper chamber of crates, Anna paused beside the board-covered floor, now concealing the opened entrance perfectly. The strange book weighed solid against her chest. Before leaving, she noticed on a nearby crate a slip of paper half buried in dust. Lydia's handwriting once more. Truth survives only when its keepers trust each other. Anna met Ethan's eyes. Neither spoke, but both understood the promise forming in silence. That night, wind chased rain against the cottage windows as Anna returned home. She set the book open on her desk, new reflections wavering across its vellum. The map's lower markings seemed darker now, fresh coordinates scrawled near the library's outline, and beneath them a line she hadn't seen before. Others may seek to claim what you protect. Beware the collector. She stared until the letters blurred. Outside, thunder cracked like distant footsteps. The world she'd entered, the secret Lydia had built, was no longer buried alone. Something, or someone, had started to move toward it. By morning, the world outside had turned to frost. The orchard lay pale beneath a sheet of white, and every breath from Anna's lips rose like smoke. She hadn't slept. Instead, she'd paced the cottage, listening to each clock strike uneven hours, knowing the quiet between them hid a new tension. She could feel it in her chest, like the air before thunder. Ethan arrived just past 9, his collar turned up against the wind. "We've got trouble," he said before stepping inside. Renwick's office filed a notice about security anomalies at the library. Someone's been down there. Not city staff. Tools missing, fencing moved. They think scavengers. The word sounded wrong. Scavengers didn't break locks that deep. "Someone knows what's under there," Anna said quietly. Ethan laid a folded newspaper on the table. Its headline read, "Private collector claims lost archive rights pending legal review." Beneath, a grainy photo showed a man in a dark coat shaking hands with city officials. The name beneath it drew her blood cold, Mr. Alaric Crane. "I've heard of him," Ethan said grimly. "Buys up private estates, flips manuscripts through offshore auctions. He's been trying to buy condemned properties tied to wartime holdings." Anna's fingers tightened around the page until it bent. "He's coming for Lydia's collection." Ethan nodded once. "And he's good at finding what isn't for sale." The cottage seemed to darken with the thought. For years, Lydia had protected her secret alone, fearing exactly this theft of meaning. History turned into currency. Anna whispered, "We have to move it before he gets there." That afternoon, they drove back toward town in silence, the road crusted with ice. Demolition crews hadn't yet arrived, but the outer fencing now bristled with fresh chains and motion sensors. Ethan parked downhill, out of sight. "We can't use the main gate anymore." Together, they climbed a retaining wall behind the adjoining museum, crossing to the service alley. A single light flickered near the cellar window she'd used before. Someone had forced it open. The nails bent outward, footprints pressed into slush. Inside, debris had shifted. The steel door to the hidden chamber hung ajar, its hinges gleaming where rust had been scratched away. Anna's pulse hammered. She knelt beside the marks, boot prints, heavy tread, recent. Whoever entered had known where to look. Crane's people, Ethan muttered. They slipped through. Several crates near the entrance had been pried open, contents scattered, parchment rolls, crumpled index cards, wax seals split. None of the core ledgers were missing yet, but one metal tube, labeled Vault Arrangement II, was gone. He's after directions, Ethan said. That missing tube may point straight to the second chamber. Anna's mind spiraled through possible losses. If Crane reached that brass vault, he'd strip Lydia's life's work into auction lots before anyone recognized their significance. She pressed the strange book flat against her heart, the only map still intact. Then we find a way to secure it now. They spent hours repacking crates, stacking them for easy movement. But by dusk, new sounds stirred overhead, voices, deliberate and low. Anna snapped off her flashlight. Through cracks in the ceiling, she saw brief flashes of light, the metallic thud of tools striking frames. They're sealing the upper access, Ethan whispered. We're trapped unless we use those tunnels your aunt mapped. Anna opened the book under dim lamplight. The inked corridors formed a web branching beneath the library toward the river quarter. Here, she pointed. Secondary route through Printworks' basements. It connects beneath the maintenance shaft. They hefted one crate each, smaller and labeled with Lydia's handwriting. Water dripped constantly now, echoing like a slow clock. Halfway through the passage, Anna caught a flicker ahead, a moving silhouette crossing a beam of light. She froze. The stranger's lantern wavered once before vanishing, footsteps fading deeper into shadow. Back path, Ethan hissed. They turned into a narrower corridor lined with clay pipes. The air grew colder, smells sharper of iron and mildew. Behind them came distant scraping again, deliberate this time. Anna's heart thudded so hard she could taste metal. At the former maintenance junction, they found a rusted ladder stretching upward. Ethan climbed first, testing each rung, dragged his crate after him, then reached for hers. As she climbed, her glove slipped against slick frost. He seized her wrist, steadying her until both reached the small hatch above. It opened into a chamber of half-collapsed brickwork, one of the tunnels leading toward the print workshop that Lydia's notes had mentioned. Shelves of corroded typeset molds lined the walls, ghosts of old printing presses. We can't carry all of them far, Ethan said, setting down his crate. We don't need all, she panted. Just enough proof to secure heritage protection, ledgers, original manifest, and any letters with provenance stamps. They reopened her crate, selecting parcels wrapped in wax cloth. Beneath them lay another smaller book Lydia must have hidden. The cover bore the same crest, but beneath it an inscription in her aunt's own firm script. For the one who finishes the record. Anna pressed her thumb across the indentation, tears burning behind exhaustion. She knew this would happen. A sudden crash echoed from the passage behind, followed by distant voices. Male, closer. She snatched the book, tucking it against her coat. Ethan doused his lantern. Darkness swallowed sound, but not breath. Boots shuffled nearer, beams of light slicing through cracks. A voice murmured, "Spread out! Check every side room!" Crane's men. Anna's mind sharpened. The map in her head traced a single narrow vent running to the outer wall. She whispered, "Follow me." They crawled through low masonry, dust clogging each inhale. At one turn, light flared behind them, someone entering the print chamber. Then a voice barked orders, echoing off stone. Anna stumbled over a ridge of broken pipe. Her palm landed on metal, the rusting rim of an access wheel half buried in rubble. Instinct took over. She twisted hard. Gears shrieked, ancient mechanisms protesting before the wall panel beside them groaned outward, releasing a draft of fresh, cold air. Daylight shimmered faintly beyond. Dawn creeping through street grates. They pushed through just as footsteps thundered up behind. Ethan yanked the panel shut. It locked from outside with one shove of a fallen bar. On the street above, wind swept snow in dizzy spirals, bright after the darkness. Both of them collapsed against the alley wall, panting clouds of frost. Anna looked down at the book still clutched under her arm and realized the spine had cracked open slightly during the crawl. Hidden within its hollow central band was a narrow compartment containing a folded document sealed in wax. She broke it open with trembling thumbs. Inside, Lydia's looping script read, "If pursuit begins, restore the record to those who protect knowledge, not wealth. Use the tunnels before dawn." She glanced toward the horizon, already paling. Dawn was minutes away. Ethan caught his breath. She planned even this. She knew someone like Crane would come. Behind them, muffled banging echoed from inside the wall, where men now pounded futilely. Time slipped thin as breath. They lifted their crates again and moved downriver toward the workshops, every step clicking against frost-hardened cobblestone. By the time they reached the sheltering arch of the abandoned print hall, the sky had shifted from blue to silver. Inside, presses stood like sleeping giants coated in dust. Anna touched one and felt the residue of ink and iron, as though Lydia's purpose hummed through it. Still, Ethan set his crate on a nearby pallet. "If we secure these here, I can have trusted contacts from the Heritage Foundation meet us tonight. Discreetly. They'll verify authenticity." Anna nodded, weary but resolute. Once the proof's public, Crane can't claim ownership. The collection becomes untouchable. Wind swept through broken windows, bringing scent of snow and smoke. Anna looked back toward town, imagining men tearing through tunnels, searching for papers already out of reach. For the first time, she felt the full weight of Lydia's legacy, not as burden, but command, to guard knowledge against greed and silence. She exhaled a cloud of white steam and whispered, "We finished the record." Ethan managed a wry smile. "And then what?" Anna looked down at the old book, its edges glowing faintly in rising light. "Then we let the world see what was almost lost." Behind them, the presses groaned as wind turned one rusted gear a fraction, echoing through the vast hall like applause from ghosts. They stood amid the sound until dawn poured fully through cracked panes, lighting the crates stacked before them. The living proof of a story 70 years guarded and now running for its life. The storm arrived earlier than forecast, a hard rain slicing sideways through the valley. By midnight, the hills vanished under sheets of water, every road reflective as a mirror. Anna stood at the window of the print workshop, palms pressed to cold glass, watching lightning splinter along the ridge. The crates sat stacked by the rear door, swathed in heavy tarps tied with rope. Each rumble of thunder rattled the panes and reminded her how little time remained before Crane's men returned. Ethan entered from the side hall, soaked from checking the outer exits. They've blocked the eastern tunnel. 2 trucks parked at the site already, he said. We have one path left, the river conduit Lydia mapped under the workshop. It runs straight beneath Main Street and empties near the railway. Anna tightened her coat. If the water rises, those tunnels will flood. It's that or hand the collection over. The decision formed not in words, but motion. Together they pried open the trapdoor beneath the printing press, revealing a spiral of metal rungs dropping into darkness. The smell of wet stone and iron rose thick as breath. Ethan descended first, beam darting along narrow walls, slick with runoff. Anna followed, guiding one crate at a time through the opening. Her muscles burned, yet adrenaline steadied every move. Below stretched a corridor half filled with shallow water. Their flashlights shimmered on the surface like twin moons. Lydia's map had shown multiple side channels, one leading beyond the city. A labyrinth intended, perhaps, for moments exactly like this. Anna whispered, she must have known these routes better than anyone. She planned so completely it's frightening, Ethan murmured. They trudged forward, water climbing past ankles. Overhead, the storm howled through the grates like a choir of ghosts. At each junction, Anna checked the map, markings smudged by damp but still legible. Left at Conduit 3, cross under pipeline. Each turn felt like dialogue with her aunt, instructions echoing through memory. Half an hour later, they reached a brick arch where current forced stronger against their legs. The ceiling here dropped low enough to scrape knuckles. Lightning flashes filtered through cracks above, painting brief squares of white across the water. Then came another sound, metal on metal, distant but closing. Ethan stopped. They found the entry. Anna looked back. Faint lantern light bobbed far behind, growing brighter. Run, she whispered. They quickened pace, splashes loud against confined air. The crates bumped walls, leaving trails of mud. Every heartbeat seemed synchronized with the pounding storm. Ahead, the tunnel widened into a hollow where rails once carried paper shipments. Wooden planks still bridged the gap. Anna clutched the smaller crate containing the ledgers and climbed first, guiding it over. Another thunderclap shook dust loose in a rain of grit. Behind, voices echoed. Crane's men shouting orders drowned by storm roar. Ethan reached her side, expression hard. They're faster than I thought. Then we'll have to slow them down. She scanned the bridge and spotted a lever controlling the old sluice gate. Water pressure hummed beneath the flooring. If we open that, they'll get a river for company, he finished with a tight grin. Together, they pulled. The mechanism resisted, then screamed as rust tore free. A surge of black water shot past in violent rush, carrying crates of debris downstream. Lantern light behind them vanished, replaced by shouts of alarm. They won't follow soon, Ethan said between breaths. Move! They sprinted down the next bend until air turned fresher. A staircase climbed toward faint night gleam. When they pushed the exit grate upward, the storm hit them full. Wind, rain, raw cold. They emerged onto the rear yard of the rail depot, floodlights flickering against sheets of water. Freight platforms stretched empty. Ghosts of commerce passed. Anna hauled the first crate onto the platform. If we reach the maintenance carriage on the sidetrack, we can store them there. Ethan nodded and ran ahead. Doors hung wide on a weathered freight car marked out of service. Inside smelled of oil and paper dust. They loaded crates fast, stacking them against the inner wall, covering with tarps. Lightning revealed their breath in silver. When the last crate settled, Anna collapsed onto the floorboards. Her heart thundered louder than the rain. Through open doors, she saw the dark outline of town lights flicker like candles far off. For the first time since the attic, she let silence stretch enough to feel awe again. "We did it. Lydia," she whispered. Ethan sat across from her, wiping mud from his hands. "How much do you think it's worth?" She looked at the crates. "In money? Maybe 20 million if one puts price tags on heritage, but Lydia never measured worth that way." He smiled faintly. "Then what did she measure?" "Continuity," Anna said, "proof that truth survives even forgotten." Wind rattled the car, and for a moment both listened to its rhythm. In that hush, something clicked, the sound of metal shifting within her coat pocket. She withdrew the hollow-spined book. Earlier, during their flight, its inner lining had split further. Now a small brass key slid into her palm, engraved with that familiar crest. "What now?" Ethan asked. She held the key to the light. "If Lydia left this inside the map, it must fit somewhere. Maybe the last layer. Remember the sealed trunk we found inscription only? The one with her initials?" "In the second vault," Ethan said slowly. "You think we missed a compartment. Or she wanted us to open it only when safe." They exchanged a look, shared exhaustion, shared curiosity, and unlatched the crate holding that trunk. Its surface gleamed faintly despite the grime, the brass lock still intact. Anna slid the key in. It turned with gentle certainty, like satisfying punctuation at the end of decades. The lid lifted without creak. Inside lay velvet-lined compartments holding wrapped bundles smaller than expected. The top bundle unfurled into a packet of letters bound by ribbon, their handwriting spidery yet determined. Records of European archivists corresponding during evacuation missions. Beneath them, a sealed envelope marked, "To whom the work falls next." Anna broke the seal carefully. Her aunt's voice seemed to breathe through the ink. "If you are reading this, the collection has survived its hunters. These works were saved from those who would burn them. I ask only that you place them where flame cannot reach, within public trust, within learning open to all. Wealth tempts the weak, but knowledge steadies the brave." LCR Ethan leaned forward, his eyes caught by the signature. She knew this moment would come. Anna nodded, throat tight, and she trusted strangers she'd never meet to finish what she began. Outside, wind shifted, carrying the storm away east. Rain weakened into mist. Through broken clouds, dawn's first light crept along the platform, touching each crate with pale gold. With it came calm, the sort that follows completion, yet still hums with possibility. Ethan rose, stretching stiff limbs. "I'll send message to the Heritage Foundation once we secure them at the depot safe house. They'll keep identities anonymous." "Anonymous is good," Anna said softly. "Let her work speak louder than names." She closed the trunk, sliding the key back into the book's hollow spine before latching it shut. They watched sunrise emerge. Over the distant hills, gentle as forgiveness. The town seemed smaller now, diminished against the weight of story beneath it. Lightning had passed, leaving the smell of rain on iron tracks. Ethan glanced toward her. "After this, what will you do?" Anna smiled, weary and luminous. "Go home, reshelve a few books, maybe open the library again." He grinned. "Ordinary life after extraordinary nights." "Ordinary is how legacies endure," she replied. A train horn wailed far down the line, long and low. As its echo faded, Anna rested her hand on the trunk one last time. Lydia's words echoed through her mind. Knowledge belongs to those who seek it, not those who hoard it. The storm had rinsed the night clean. Around them, the new day spread, carrying a promise untouched by greed. They had escaped not merely with fortune, but with a truth restored to light. By the time the Heritage Foundation arrived, two unmarked vans rolled through the morning mist like silent guardians. Their representatives moved with practiced calm, archivists in coated gloves, taking each crate from Anna's trembling hands as though lifting fragile time itself. The air inside the rail depot smelled of damp iron and resting rain. Ethan stayed near the doorway, answering quiet questions about provenance and chain of custody, while Anna watched strangers carry her aunt's dedication into daylight. One archivist, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Varma, inspected the sealed letters with reverence. "These are genuine," she murmured, surprised. 70 years vanished from every record, but perfectly preserved. Your aunt must have known what she was saving." Anna nodded. "She did. She just never told anyone." Outside, cameras clicked for documentation. No press, only verification, metadata logs and signatures, preliminary appraisals whispered between experts. The numbers made Anna's stomach turn. 2, maybe 3 million for the 17th century correspondences alone. Add the banned journals, illuminated manuscripts, and university archives. Altogether, maybe 20 million in historic value. Lydia's secret was wealth, not of gold, but of resilience. Ethan joined her as the last crate was sealed with the Foundation's mark. His smile carried exhaustion and relief. "They'll store everything in the National Repository until public galleries request custody. No private auction, no sale." "Good," Anna said quietly. "That's where it belongs." Dr. Varma approached with a clipboard. "You're entitled to compensation for discovery rights and historical recovery." Anna shook her head immediately. "Keep it under Heritage Grant. Every page is public property now." Ethan's look softened, part pride, part disbelief. "That's a selfless choice." "It's the only choice that fits her message," Anna replied. "She didn't hide treasure for me to profit. She protected knowledge until someone cared enough to keep protecting it." Hours later, when the vans departed, silence folded back over the rail yard. Anna stayed by the threshold long after others left, watching dust float through sunbeams. For the first time since she'd unlocked the attic trunk, the quiet felt peaceful rather than haunted. By afternoon, she returned to the cottage that had started everything. The hills were bright now, the orchard slick with melting frost. Each clock on the wall ticked again, finally wound to the same hour as if Lydia's order had resumed. She climbed the attic steps carrying the strange book, no longer heavy with secrecy but shining at the edges from constant handling. Up there, the air no longer smelled of neglect. Sunlight breached every crack, turning webs into filaments of gold. The empty trunk stood open like an echo finished with its duty. Anna rested the book beside it. Dust motes rose, then settled on pages that had changed her life. For a moment, she simply breathed. The hush felt sacred. On the table near the window lay her aunt's final note, once hidden among the letters now authenticated by historians. Anna read it again, ink steady despite the tremor of age. Knowledge belongs to those who seek it, not those who hoard it. She traced each letter with her fingertip, speaking softly into the stillness. "You did it, Lydia. You kept it safe." In that light, she saw her own reflection in the attic window. Same pale hair threaded with gray, same quiet demeanor once mistaken for timidity. But behind her eyes was something new, purpose shaped by discovery. Downstairs, she had reopened the home's small front room and converted it back into what it once was. a reading salon. Shelves lined the walls with her aunt's remaining personal books, cleaned and labeled. A handwritten sign on the door read, Rhodes Private Library. Free to visitors Saturdays. The first townspeople who came were children, curious about the idea of a library inside someone's house. Anna watched them turn pages, whispering with the eagerness that only discovery brings. Among the displays sat one small glass case containing a photograph of Lydia smiling faintly at her typewriter. Beside it lay the strange leather-bound book, open to the map's first page where faded ink still traced Lydia's initials. When visitors asked about it, Anna would answer simply, "It's part of a story about keeping promises." Weeks passed, snow thawed into spring water, singing through the gutters. The Harrowfield Library demolition was halted permanently. Beneath its foundation, restoration crews began constructing a memorial exhibit named the Hidden Archive. Anna attended the opening dressed in plain gray, preferring the background. Ethan stood beside her, now retained officially as consultant. During speeches about cultural preservation, she barely listened, her gaze fixed instead on the bronze plaque unveiled beside the entrance. Dedicated to Dr. Lydia C. Rhodes, keeper of quiet things. Tears surprised her then, not sorrow, but sheer recognition. All those years of whispered eccentricity, dismissed warnings, stacks of unfiled papers, they had become one enduring truth. Lydia had trusted her. That evening, Anna walked home alone through streets washed clean by rain. Every window glowed with lamplight, and she heard laughter from the reopened cafes. The town that once avoided her aunt's name now carried it in pride. Yet she felt no claim to fame, only a steady warmth of belonging. Back inside the cottage, she lit a single lamp in the attic and sat near the trunk one last time. Outside, wind moved steadily across the orchard, shaking petals loose. On the desk before her, she opened her own notebook, its pages blank and waiting. The first line came easily. Archive recovered, mission, continuation. She paused, smiled, kept writing, details of how Lydia found the first crates during war salvage programs, how each code corresponded to lost institutions, how knowledge itself behaved like a seed, dormant until the right hands gently unearthed it. Every sentence felt like stitching closure into fabric torn decades ago. As twilight deepened, she heard faint footsteps below, light and hesitant. Her niece, 11 years old, called softly, "Aunt Anna, can I come up?" "Of course," Anna answered. The girl climbed halfway, eyes wide at the beams of dusk filtering through dust. "It smells like old paper up here," she said, delighted. "That means you'll like it." Her gaze landed on the open trunk. "Was this your treasure box?" "In a way," Anna said, "but it's real treasure already left." The child knelt, tracing one of the trunk's brass corners. "Can I look inside anyway?" "It's empty now. Mostly." The girl lifted the lid farther. For a breath, the air stirred as if remembering a secret. There, beneath a dust cloth, a small metallic latch caught light. A new compartment Anna hadn't noticed before. Her niece pressed it impulsively. A tiny drawer slid outward, revealing an object wrapped in brown paper. Anna leaned closer, half laughing through disbelief. "Seems your curiosity's sharper than mine." They unwrapped it together. Inside lay an old fountain pen and a folded card with Lydia's initials on the back. The message was only 4 words: "For whoever asks next." The girl beamed. "Does that mean me?" Anna smiled through tears. "Yes, it always meant the one who keeps wondering." She drew her niece into a gentle hug, smelling ink and lilac soap, familiar and new all at once. The attic glowed warm around them, a space no longer haunted by secrets, but alive with continuity. Downstairs, the clocks struck in perfect unison for the first time, each chime rolling like affirmation through the quiet house. Anna closed the trunk carefully, leaving the pen and card where they belonged. The wind brushed the window pane, turning pages of the old map still displayed on the table. Its corners fluttered as if nodding approval. She looked out across the hills darkening into evening and felt peace settle deep as roots. Curiosity, not fortune, had been her inheritance, a pulse of searching that would never fade. The story wasn't about treasure found, but about keeping light alive where silence once ruled. The attic glimmered in amber dusk, dust swirling like slow sparks. Pages of the old map trembled under a soft breath of wind, as though memory itself still turned them. Anna stood by the window, the quiet shimmering around her. The house no longer felt heavy. It breathed again, alive with the hum of clocks and the faint scent of paper warmed by light. She closed the strange book, its edges worn smooth by discovery, and whispered, "Thank you." Beneath that word lived 70 years of silence, finally answered. Her gaze drifted to the orchard where twilight pooled among trees. A landscape once mapped, now understood. Downstairs, voices of children echoed faintly. Curiosity had come home. Anna smiled, knowing her inheritance had never been wealth but wonder, an unbroken thread connecting seeker to keeper, question to clue. The value wasn't measured in millions, but in how stories survived their hiding places. If this story made you feel that same pull toward forgotten corners, tell me below. What hidden thing in your own family would you search for if you could? And if you want more tales where ordinary lives uncover the extraordinary, subscribe for more strange, uncanny stories waiting quietly to be found.